Hello, my name is Maria Garcia. We're here today to speak with Stanley Nelson, an Emmy Award-winning writer, director, and producer who has made more than a dozen films about the African American experience. The subject of his debut documentary was Madam C.J. Walker, the daughter of slaves who became a self-made millionaire and a civil rights activist and philanthropist. Mr. Nelson, a native New Yorker, is also a Guggenheim Fellow. He is the co-founder of the production company Firelight Films and the executive director of Firelight Media, a nonprofit company that supports emerging filmmakers. We are here to discuss Mr. Nelson's latest documentary, The Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution, which is a history of the Panther movement and the civil rights movement. It will open at Film Forum in New York City on September 2nd. I think The Black Panthers, Vanguard of the Revolution, Mr. Nelson, is almost the last in a trilogy that began with Freedom Riders and Freedom Summer, the latter about SNCC's voter registration campaign in Mississippi. Your chronology in these documentaries sort of helps the audience understand the radicalism of the Black Panthers. So could you talk a little bit about that chronology, and is it actually a trilogy?
Sure. You know, actually, I think of it as, what do you call four films? I don't know what you call four. It's not a trilogy. Well, because I think there's a film, The Murder of Emmett Till, that we did, which talks about really the kind of, start of the modern civil rights movement. So I think that, that's kind of how, I look at it. And I think it is, that's, perceptive of you to look at it that way. I think that, Freedom Summer ends, one of the last shots in Freedom Summer is Stokely Carmichael standing up, and saying we want Black Power, which is one of the first shots that we use in the Black Panthers. I don't think we kind of ever thought about it as a trilogy. I'm trying to make this trilogy that would have been way too ambitious for me as a filmmaker, since every project you have to try to raise more money. But I think that's kind of how it turns out. It goes from Emmett Till being murdered and kind of raising people's consciousness, and the people who were Emmett Till's age at the time, 14 in 1955, well, 6 or 7 years later in 1961, those people are 20. Who are the people who really are, on the freedom rides, and that leads to, Freedom Summer, and the disillusionment after Freedom Summer, when the Freedom Democratic Party is defeated in Atlantic City, leads to a real questioning of the motives of what we think of as the civil rights movement, the nonviolent civil rights movement. Not the motives, I'm sorry, the tactics of the nonviolent civil rights movement come into question, because it's felt like, in Atlantic City we did everything right, but still these people cut our legs out from under us. So what do we do now? And one of the things that came up was the idea of Black Power, a much more militant view of protest, and a much more militant view of a way to push forward and push ahead.
Okay. So was Stokely Carmichael a sort of turning point? Did you see that as a turnkey moment, and that's why he ends one film? And
well, I mean, I never thought when we were making Freedom Summer, we just thought that was this turning moment, that I mean, and in history that's what happened, right after the defeat in 61 of the Freedom Democratic Party. There was a couple of months after that, Stokely Carmichael calls for Black Power, which was something that really changed the movement. At that point, also SNCC throws out all the white people from SNCC, and says, no, we're gonna, you guys handle your own community, we're gonna handle ours. And so there's this big turning in the movement. There just is, kind of after that, and to say, it's only going to take us so far, because in some ways, the traditional civil rights movement that we think of with Martin Luther King and those people, was what they were doing was appealing to the humanity and fairness of white folks. When you see us, get beat, when you see the dogs, when you see the water hoses,
Right.
you know, you are going to now say, okay, you know, these people are right, these people are wrong. But I think what happened, you know, in Atlantic City was, you know, okay, you're right, but we're still not going to give you, you know, any kind of equality. And so that changed the whole mindset, I think, of the movement.
Yeah, as someone says near the end of that documentary, you know, moral right usually translates into, you know, political move. You know, in other words, that they would win their cause,
Right.
because they had the moral right on their side, but they didn't. Despite Fannie Lou. Oh my God.
No, she's great, but
She's fabulous.
you know, you're talking about, you know, real systemic change. You know, you're talking about economic change, and at that point, you know, goodwill kind of breaks down.
Yeah. You were quite young during this sort of the rise of the Black Panther Party, and it's sort of living history for both of us. I wonder, when you were doing the research, were there any surprises?
Well, I mean, I think there are a number of surprises for me, you know, in doing the research. I mean, I was surprised, you know, at how the Panthers were, you know, multiracial in the people who supported the Panthers.
Okay.
You know, how it was multiracial in the people that supported the Panthers. You know, the Panthers have come down in history. We think about the Black Panthers as this kind of, you know, anti-white, white people hating group that was out there isolated by themselves. But the Panthers, you know, were very mainstream at that point. You know, they were on the news nightly.
Right.
You know, talking. You know, there were. You know, and we try to show that in the film visually. You know, we try not to talk about it over and over again, but we try to show it visually. So you see these shots of Eldridge Cleaver speaking, and there's, you know, thousands of white folks sitting there. You know, you see, you know, little old white ladies kind of watching the Panthers. You know, you see, there's a great speech that Bobby Seale makes that says, you know, we don't hate anybody because of their color. We hate oppression, and we hate the police murders of black people, which I would still stand by today. It's such a great statement. You know, it's such a great statement today, you know, to say that. So, you know, I think that's surprising. And then it's also, I think the film is very surprising in the fact that, you know, J. Edgar Hoover just went after the Panthers, you know, with everything he had. And then he wrote it down, you know, that it's in memos and you know, in words. And so
that was pretty shocking.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking that it really does exist, that, you know, that they just went after the Panthers with the full, you know, weight of the United States government, you know, personified by the FBI. So I think that's shocking. I think the other thing that's obviously, you know, shocking to the film are just the images, you know, that there's so much footage and so many pictures and just incredible things on the Panthers. You know, we forget what a phenomenon the Panthers were at the time. You know, there were photographers who just followed them around.
Right.
You know, a lot of freelance guys just followed them. That was like their beat, you know, basically, to just follow the Panthers.
Well, I think that sequence you have inside the car in Oakland, when they first started, and I thought, wow, who was that doing that? Right?
Well, we searched for that footage for a long time.
It was amazing.
But you know, but part of what we said was that, you know, to ourselves and to the team, was that the Panthers started out, you know, because of the police patrols in Oakland. And the police patrols were really famous and became this famous thing. And so somebody had to shoot it, you know, locally, nationally, somebody had to at least take pictures.
Right.
You know, who would have known that we'd actually find footage that was shot inside the car as they're driving around, you know, following the police. But we did find it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. For me, one of the highlights of the documentary are the interviews with rank and file members.
Right.
But of course, then also you have Kathleen Cleaver, Eldridge Cleaver's wife, who was a member of this sort of inner circle.
Right.
But I would like to ask you, Bobby Seale only appears briefly, and I personally was disappointed not to see Angela Davis. Now, of course, I know that Miss Davis was not a Panther.
Okay. Well then,
she worked very closely.
why did you expect to see her in the film?
Because, you know, my heart is with Angela Davis. But she did work closely with him, didn't she, Mr. Nelson?
She worked closely for a while. I think she was actually might have been in the Panther Party for a week. or so, but she really was not a Panther. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of people ask that question, but Angela Davis was not a Black Panther. So
Okay.
I mean, she's associated with them in our minds,
Right.
but she was not kind of a Black Panther. And look, also there's a great film, Free Angela and All Political Prisoners.
Yes.
Which came out a couple of years ago, and they were finishing up as we were starting, and our feeling was, look, okay, this is one less thing we have to talk about. If there's one less thing we have to talk about, then that makes it great. But even more, I mean, if she was really a part of the Panthers, we would have talked about it, but she wasn't.
And Bobby Seale only appears twice, I think once in archival footage and once maybe when he was talking about Sacramento.
Yeah, Bobby, it's all archival. Bobby just kind of, we couldn't reach an agreement with Bobby to participate in the film.
Okay.
We tried our best, but we couldn't.
Okay, okay. During the presidential campaign, her campaign, Shirley Chisholm was asked about the Black Panthers, and she said she thought that the Panthers understood her because they understood the nature of power. And I wonder if you feel that the Black Panthers explained or exposed in a very dramatic way the nature of political power in the U.S. I mean, to both whites and blacks.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think the Panthers were supporters of Shirley Chisholm. That's something that's not known.
Yes.
They were very much supporters of Shirley Chisholm, and I think that the thing is, when you talk about the Panthers, there were 3 or 4 different Panther movements within that one stretch of time. So they go from carrying guns to Bobby Seale running for mayor. Right. So there's many shifts in the Panthers and who the Panthers are. Just in the 7-year period that we highlight. Okay. So I'm not sure that you can classify them as any one thing. I think what the Panthers did understand more than anything was the media. I think the Panthers understood the media and understood the media in just an incredible way. And I think probably because, one of the reasons why is because these were the sons and daughters of television. So you think about, people who are a little bit older than the Panthers, they didn't grow up with television. Right. The Panthers did. These were the first group, one of the first groups that really grew up with television. Right. And they also had seen the more mainstream civil rights movement, so they could kind of take, what worked and use that, and then take what didn't work and throw that away. So I think they were, part of the Panthers was their kind of seizing of the media. That's one of the reasons why there's so much great footage and stills and other stuff that remains from the Panther movement, because there was just, they were darlings of the media.
Right. Okay. Of course, the documentary raises a lot of topical issues. Among the fact that the Black Panthers believed in armed resistance, and so as you said, the early footage in the film showing them showing up with their guns when police were arresting or harassing black men. So now we're at this point where, President Obama, there's a shooting in South Carolina, and President Obama comes on TV and says, well, I can't pass gun legislation now. And so, of course, everybody, most people would agree with that we need that. But I was a little disappointed that somebody didn't say, and President Obama didn't say, hey, we have to start talking about the racism that's still here. So what, in light of what happened just a few days ago, what should we think about?
Well, I think I would disagree with that. I think that Obama very clearly said we need to, talk about race, and we need to talk about, what's going on now in this country. I think he said that. I think that's one of the huge problems in this country is, we don't talk about race, we don't talk about the problems, and I don't know what goes on in white folks' mind, but white people have, our recipient, it's like it must be hard to talk about, when you're kind of the recipients of the rewards of this racism. You reap rewards from it. So it doesn't get talked about. I think that one of the things that hopefully can come out of these tragedies of the past year or so is maybe, that we'll start talking a little bit about race in this country, and take and maybe we'll start taking a look around at race in this country, and where things are and how uneven they are. There was this article today in the New York Times that said black household wealth, average household wealth is $11,000. White household wealth is $134,000. That's average. So that's over 10 times, the average wealth. It's just crazy. I mean, and it's crazy, but we don't notice it. We're, in New York, and New Yorkers are as blind as anybody. We want to talk about Mississippi or South Carolina or somewhere, or Ferguson, but New York is just as, racist as I mean, look, you go to a restaurant, it's like one set of people. What kills me is you get on an airplane. I fly a lot.
Right.
If you get on an airplane during the week, when business people are traveling, there's no black people on the airplane. And none. You fly on the weekends, you might find some families flying around, but there's no black people flying around for business.